Welcome everyone, my name is Cody Scott, and in this video, I'm excited to teach you how I color grade my wedding videos. Let's get into it. My friends, my family, and everyone else in between, welcome to a channel that teaches you how to explore, inspire, and engage as an active videographer. My name is Cody Scott, and if you're new to this channel, feel free to consider hitting that like button, that subscribe button, or that dislike button if that's something that you're into. Well guys, this is the video that you've been asking for. How do I color grade my weddings? Now, as you know, I shoot everything in 6K RAW, uncompressed with the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera 6K. So that's the footage that we're going to be working with today. Now, if there's a certain camera that you would like to request that I color grade, please leave a comment below and I'll get to that as soon as I can. The cameras that you can expect me to be releasing in the future is the Blackmagic, the Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, the GH5, the Canon EOS R, the M50, the Hero 7, and the DJI Mavic 2 Pro. I'm going to begin by setting up my node tree, and as you guys know, we're going to start with noise reduction. Noise reduction is always the first thing that is, well, first. And now we're going to move into my HDR, which is one of the new features of DaVinci Resolve. Next will be color and then exposure. Once we do exposure, then we're going to move into the clean to get those whites looking really nice and clean. And then we're probably going to do a parallel node of the skin, and then the lips, and then the trees, and that'll be good there. And next we're going to move into the vignette. I would like to get another parallel node set, a vignette of our subject. And next we're going to do pop and sharpen, and then grain, and that is going to finish off our image. Now let's go back through and label these one by one so we can understand what it is that we are doing. This will be sharpness, pop. We have vignette 1, we have vignette 2, cleaning up the whites. We have skin tones here. And guys, it's very important to make sure that your skin tones stay second here. The way DaVinci works is that node 2 affects node 1, node 3 affects node 2, node 4 affects node 3, and so on and so on. Unlike other NLEs, which chains have different commands and behaviors. Anyway, that's another topic. We are moving into the lips, so we want to make sure that the lips are after the skin, because the skin might pick up the lips a little bit and shift the colors, which means we're gonna have to shift them back here, but without changing the skin. That's why we put it after the skin. And next is the green. The trees back there. We're gonna do HDR here. We're gonna do color here. We're gonna do exposure here, and the last bit, which will be the first thing, is noise reduction. So guys, that's my node tree. Take a quick look, screenshot that. I'm even gonna right click, grab a still. So if you guys would like to come in and just right click to download and apply the grade, it applies this exact power grade to your Blackmagic footage or any footage if you're in DaVinci Resolve. If you guys want to buy this color grade, just let me know. I'm going to be selling it for $0 because why would I sell it? This is gold and you guys should have it. So let's do it. Let's begin by let's just get into it, guys. Noise reduction, 3 frames. You know how I do this. Actually, no you don't. Here we go. So 6 is typically what I do, and make sure that you break the chain before you type it in, because if not, you go to make adjustments, it's going to change both of them and you don't want that. So click that little broken chain icon and you're going to be good to go. Break the chain, 6, 1, 4. That's typically what I do. Now, the things that don't make too big of a difference in my image right now will be the sharpness. 0.47 is typically where I go. Now, if you don't know where that's at, your sharpness is located here where the teardrop and this little triangle is at. Click on it. Make sure it says blur and then come over to either of these values. I go to the R because it's the closest, and I bring it down to 0.47. It just sharpens up the eyes. You can tell by looking at it. You might not be able to see it on your screen depending on what it is you're watching it on. And then my grain right here, that I open up the effects and I type in grain, film grain, pop that on there, 35 millimeter. We're gonna go to the grain size and just bring it up a little bit, and the grain strength, bring it up a little bit. Now that I have these things on there, I disable all of them just to keep it clean. You can tell by looking at my information that it impacts my image big time. And because you need to start at the very beginning when you do some grading, it's important to keep it off. All right, so I just wanted to knock that stuff out of the way because I do it for every... All right, I just wanted to quickly knock that stuff out of the way because I do it for every single shot. Let's begin, guys, jumping into the exposure. Now, I'm looking at this image and I can tell that it was a little overexposed here. Now, there are ways to get a better start here, and with Blackmagic Raw, you're actually able to go into your decode using options, go to clip, and adjust your ISO. Look at this. If I want to look, I could bring it all the way down to 125 and my information goes basically where I need it. But if you shot it higher, use it higher. If you shot it lower, use it lower. If you guys didn't know that, you're gonna love this. Anyway, I'm bringing this down to about 400. That's gonna give me a pretty clean start, and I'm perfectly fine with that. Now we're going to our exposure, and we're just going to crank this contrast and pivot. This typically sits well around 1.3, but I'm getting a lens flare right here, I can tell, which means my contrast is going to be lower because it hit the lens. So I'm going to have to bring it up a little bit and that pivot down a bit just to compensate for that contrast. Now, just with the contrast, you can tell how big of a difference that made. We're not done yet though, because we still need to bring down these highlights that you can see right here. Like all that stuff has to come down, but it's clipped. That information is clipped. This was an overexposed image, which means that information is gone. It's not there anymore. Shadows down, that pivot, where that's supposed to be, right around there. Just to contrast to 1.32 right there. Shadows down here. Yeah. It's looking better. Now it's looking pretty good. I just want to make sure that these black points that you see are truly black. So I'm going to come into my log wheels over here and make sure you go over to your low range and bring it down to about 0.2. And when you do that, you're telling DaVinci to only affect the darkest parts of your image. When you come into your shadows and you bring them down, you'll notice just at the bottom of your waveform right here, that's where you want to be looking. It's bringing the information down. Now, remember, when you use your log wheels, that does break your image really fast, so you only want to use it to massage your image in the right direction. If your shadows are almost black, then just use it to push it right over. Now that the contrast is looking pretty good, I'm going to move to my color and pump that bad boy. It's about 85. Now, that's looking great. Guys, look, we did two adjustments. I shot this at a wedding outside during daytime, and it looks really good. We do have a white balance issue that I'm seeing right here. It looks like there's too much blue going on, and you can also tell when you take a power window and you draw over something white in the image, which would be right down here, and then turn on your little thing there, and you're gonna see there's too much blue in the image. So if I did nothing else and just brought this blue down, and you're trying to match it with the green, and then a little bit of green in the image to balance it, take this off, remove my power window, and look at the difference. Before and after, white balanced and contrast. If that was the only two things you did, you would be perfectly fine. So guys, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna turn off noise reduction here. I'm going to right click, grab a still. All right guys, so this is looking good, and all we did was the exposure and the color. Next, I'm coming into my HDR, and this is one of the newer functions of DaVinci. It's located right down here, and this Oh my goodness, I'm so excited to show you guys this. This is the secret sauce to making the image look so good. Now, HDR is a high dynamic range function, so be careful how you use it. It does affect your image similar to your log wheels over here, so you can't push it too much, but you can push it a little bit more than your log wheels, in my experience with the Blackmagic footage. Now, you'll notice as I bring my shadows up, this image is starting to look a little bit more and more pleasing, right? Just look at this. Just that alone pops out the image, guys. That's the secret. HDR, shadows up. Now, I do want to bring down the highlights of my skin tones just a little bit here because they were just a little bit too, what's the word? They were just too bright for me. Now, we will get back to the skin when we get over here, but right now I just wanted to bring that down and even it out a little bit. Now, if you click on this little button here, it'll show you everything that's bright. If I'm looking at this on my scopes, it should sit right at 80%, and that's basically what it's doing. But I do want to bring it down just a little bit to help bloom the highlights a little bit better. Now, that is looking perfect. Now we're about to move into cleaning up the whites a little bit. Come into the primaries, go over to your highlights and bring them down. Now go over to your clean, come into your highlights, and bring them down to about 0.98, 0.97. Come up to your color bars, and then where your gain channel is at, just go to your Luma channel and turn it back up to 1. What that does is just raises the channel back up to 1 without raising the rest of the color, which cleans up the colors in the shadows and in the whites. It's just very subtle. You can see it over here in the reds. It does clean it up and balance it out a little bit more. So that is looking good. Next up is skin. So I'm going to my qualifier and I'm going to turn on my mask. Now just draw on the skin everything that I need to be changing. And what I love about the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K is how clean the keys come out. You do get quite a bit of information to work with. Now, I don't want to affect the hair of these lights over here, so I do have to clean it up a little bit. I'm going to come over to my blur radius and bring that up to about 40. The clean black, I am boosting that thing. Sometimes I even max it out. But I'm going to keep it right around there because I know it's gonna come in handy right around there. I'm going to denoise just a bit. So low soft and high soft is the first thing I jump to because I do it every time. And you can tell what you can do with just this little bit of sliders here. Guys, that's the power of DaVinci Resolve. It gives you this much control over your masks when you need to key something out. I do need to widen up my hue a little bit because I was losing some of the skin there. Right there is pretty good, but that's dark and I don't want that in my image, so I'm going to go to my saturation values, and this is typically your culprit, guys. That can typically clean up your image quite a bit. But when you're pulling keys for skin, this is push and pull. You have to take your time with it. You have to really dial this in, and I'm getting pretty close. Look at that. Like, that's just our skin. If we changed anything, it would just be her skin. Look, now she's yellow. She can be the Hulk if we wanted to. You see, the power of DaVinci is awesome. I'm going to reset that. Anyway, so now that we have her skin pulled up, I'm going to go to my vector scope, and this line right here, this little white line you see, tells me where skin should sit. Now, what this is telling me is that it's a little bit over this way towards the yellow. So if we look at our image, it does look a little yellow. So we need to shift a little bit towards red. Now you can do that with your gamma, your primary. So grab your gamma, get used to it going left, right, up, and down. Just shift it, right? And then turn this off and look at the before and after. Just take a look at the before and after. It's a slight difference, but it does clean up with the skin tones really nicely. Now I'm not done with it yet. I do need to get that pink that you're seeing right here out. So I'm going to do that by taking the mid-toe detail, bringing it down because that softens the skin out a little bit, coming over to my highlights and shifting them back towards yellow. And you're going to see this line over here just straightening out. Next bit is taking my shadows and bringing them a little towards yellow. And that's cleaning up that shadow right there. Now, you're going to see a little bit of color hanging out right here in the shadows, to clean that up, if you come into your curves and go down to your luma versus saturation, click the low black end right here. This is the shadows. If I drag it up, you see what happens here. So just the lowest end, press 1 and enter right there, and it cleans up just a little bit. Just a little bit. You'll see if I turn it off, turn it back on. Makes a big difference. Anyway, let's take our mask off, and we're gonna see before and after. That skin tone is looking perfect, but check this out. I do want to make it pop a little bit more, so I'm gonna come over here, click on the top, and then make sure editable splines is on, because if it's not, then this won't work. So editable splines, clicked on the top, it generated a point. Now take that point and just drag it up ever so slightly. You see that? Now her skin is popping. Look at that difference. Now guys, look at what we've done so far, from that to that. But we're not done yet. Check this out, guys. Look, I'm gonna pull up my qualifiers, zoom in a little bit here, and get a little bit closer, pull up my qualifiers, turn on my mask, and highlight the lips, and just change the center a little bit. There we go. All right, so that's looking good, but I do have to qualify the cure a little bit more, so I'm gonna just bring the darkest parts down, so it's only affecting the lips there. Soften the image. You guys know that I crank that blur radius. The clean blacks go up like this, clean whites a little bit, and denoise a tad. So I'm just looking at that, and it looks, I mean, that's perfect. Like, I'm only affecting this a little bit, and I can do that just by cleaning it up like this. Boom, look at that. And now we're impacting just this area. So when I'm looking at the image, I'm seeing that the lipstick is like this reddish pink, but more towards pink. So I'm just gonna go to my gamma, and if I brought it all the way up, that's what it would look like, guys, but I'm not. But I am shifting it towards that color, just enough to do that. Now I bring the mid-tone detail down of the lips because it does soften the lips up, and it does make them look a little bit bigger as well. And I do want to make them pop, so I'm going to take the luma level, drag up the brightness of it, and let's take a look. So we have before and after. You see that difference? Just with the lips there. I do want to bring that brightness up a little bit, and the highlights, shift them there. That does just make it a little bit fuller. Just the highlights and the shadows shifting a little bit of a magenta tone to them. Now I'm going to boost the color boost a little bit. Think of it like vibrance if you're used to editing photos. The saturation just a tad bit, and this is looking awesome. Now I'm moving right into the green, and if you want, guys, the quick way to do it is go to color, presets, and just go to green or yellow, and you'll notice it picks up most of the green in the image. It does really well, and a pro hack is you don't have to adjust your keys every time. If you do it this method, it's good. When you go from clip to clip, it's actually just going to impact that area. So I'm just pulling the green here. I'm going to dial back on this, soften it out, hit it with that blur radius, and then take some of the low ends out. And now we're just going to impact these green areas here that you can see. If you want, you can turn it like completely autumn if that's what you're going for, but that's not what I'm going for. So I'm going to reset it. But I could shift it that direction. I could shift it this direction, this direction. Really, this is where you guys get creative. Like, what would look good here? You know, like this is really up to you. You're using the gamma to do this, and this is what I love about color grading, because you can get so creative when you know how to do it the right way. You know what I mean? That looks good, like with those colors. So I am going to shift them in that direction, but I'm going to bring down the saturation a little bit, and then bring the color boost down just a bit. And what I want to do is bring the exposure of the image up a little bit, and I can see down here what it looks like, but I'm not sure if you guys can. So I'm going to bring the brightness of the image, just the background, up a little bit, and the shadows up a little bit to give it that lifted look, that like faded lifted look that you guys like in the background. And to make this really pop, I'm going to come into my settings over here where I would bring the sharpness all the way down if I wanted to. I'm going to take it the opposite direction here, guys, and I'm going to, which it typically starts at 50, I'm going to take it to about 54 and blur the background out a little bit. Now check this out. We're not done yet, but we went from this to this. We're getting there. Now we just need to make her pop from the background. So we're going to start with a vignette. And I'm going to just come to my power window, put a vignette over her, and then tilt it just a little bit. Probably like right around there is good. And I could track it by coming over here and pressing track forward. And DaVinci does really, really well. And it's pretty fast too. So there we go. We've tracked our mask. I'm going to press copy and I'm going to paste here because remember we're doing 2 vignettes and that's going to make sense in just a second. So this vignette we're going to take and raise the exposure by coming to your curves, clicking on the top, making sure editable splines is on, and bringing those highlights up a little bit. This is what it's doing, guys. If you can see that, it's only affecting that part of the image. So it is bringing up just her, just the highlights around her. Now I'm going to come down here to my other one, my other vignette, and do the same thing except where the shadows are at, and just bring down the shadows like right around there. Come back into your mask and invert that bad boy. Look at this. It's affecting everything but our subject. So it's bringing down the darkness or bringing down the shadows of everything around her, making her pop. So just these 2 things alone, we got like this girl who blends into the image and now she pops out of it, you know? But that's not the last step because we have one more. And this is the secret method, guys. If you learn anything else from this tutorial, learn this. So whoever made it this far, you're in for a treat because this is game changing. Type in, oh man, you guys are gonna love this. Type in glow. Drag glow onto your clip. Next, go down to composite type, soft light. I bring my opacity down to about 0.2, 0.3. I play around with it a little bit. My brightness comes up. My shine threshold comes down. And my spread, we'll just park it. Park it right around there. And my brightness will do great 80, right around 80% looks pretty good. Now, if I turn that off and on, you guys can see what it looks like. Opacity, I'm going to bring that down just a little bit more. Nice, this is looking really good. Bring that back down to about 0.2. Now check it out. So this looks perfect. That looks good. We add our pop to it and just brings out these highlights. It just makes it so I just love the way that shines. But we're not done yet because we need to come back in here, go to our curves again, bring those highlights up just above 80. Not too much, just above 80. Then we're going to turn our sharpness back on and our grain on. Right click on it and that will be a power grade. If you guys want, this power grade will be available. What that allows you to do is right click on it, apply the grade, and you will get these exact nodes in your power grade window. If that's something that in your power grade browser, if that's something that you guys want, let me know and we will make that happen. So right now I'm just looking at my image and I'm seeing if there's anything else that I want to do to this. Now this is looking really good, guys, and the beautiful part about this is because I right clicked and grabbed a still from this, I can come up to my gallery and apply that same grade to all of the clips that I shot outside during this time. Now let's recap really quick. We're gonna start from the beginning. So we're starting with noise reduction just to clean up some of the noise that we're gonna see in the shadows here. Then we did our exposure, making sure our contrast looked natural. And following that up was our color. We just raised our saturation and balanced out the white. And then we used our secret weapon HDR to make our visual pop After the HDR was complete, we did clean and just clean up the whites that you can see here in the wedding dress. Next was skin. It was looking a little yellow, so we brought up the exposure a little bit to make it less saturated, and we shifted over the skin tone just a little bit to balance out that yellow hint. Next was the lips. Pop. We just wanted to pop the lips just to make sure that this girl is looking her best on her day. So when she watches this, she is just in awe. And she loved it, by the way. She loved this wedding film. She already received it. And you guys are the best. If you're watching this video, you guys are awesome. I hope you're doing well. Next was the green. The green just pops, guys. That looks so good. Now I'm coming over to my vignette and we're raising the exposure just around our subject. Same thing here, except bringing the shadows down around our subject. Once we did that, we popped our subject out with some glow. As you can see, we went from here to here and then added our sharpness back into it to sharpen up the eyes, and then polished off with some of that vintage film grain, and that is looking good. Well guys, that is all for me. That is how I color grade my wedding footage. If you guys found this video helpful and you want to learn more, click those links below. Hit that subscribe button, the like button if that's something you're into, or that dislike button too. I'll see you guys in the next one.